So for those of you who have been around the channel for a while, you'll know one of the series I like to do is called Evolution. The series where we look at the history of Call of Duty. Last week we looked at the history of a map that's been around for quite some time, and that would be, of course, Rust. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, something that we have done a couple of times on this channel, and that is looking at a weapon. Now, as far as the Evolution series goes, we've covered a lot of things in this series. We've talked about many different weapons, we've talked about many different maps, and of course, we've talked about weapons as well. But I'm curious what you guys want to see in the future. The best way to let me know is let me know down in the comments where you want to see this series go. And of course, if you do want to see this series continue, the best way to show me is by simply hitting that like button, because the more likes this video gets, the more likely I am to continue this series. Now, as far as today's video... Dude, what are you doing here?
Oh. Well...
Really?
We got a nuke yet?
No, I haven't got one yet.
You suck.
Why are you here? Nobody wants you here.
Dude, I just wanted to hang out.
Dude, just get out of here.
Really?
Leave. No, I don't want you here either. Anyway, this is the evolution of the UMP45. Something interesting about the UMP is it's absolutely a fan favorite weapon, but it really hasn't been in that many Call of Duty games compared to something like the AK-47. The UMP in total has been really in 4 Call of Duty games. Now, we're going to look at some little Easter eggs where it was involved in some other ones as well, but it's pretty crazy how a gun that has been in so few games has had such a large impact on Call of Duty as a whole. And with the Striker 45, another name for the UMP45, being added into Modern Warfare last week, I thought this was a perfect time to look at the evolution of the UMP. And it all began back in Modern Warfare 2. Now, I think one of the reasons why this weapon is so well known is because how good it actually was in Modern Warfare 2. So first, let's start out by actually going through all of the attachments for the weapon. So first off, you had Rapid Fire, Red Dot, Silencer, ACOG, FMJ, Akimbo, Holographic Sight, Thermal, and Extended Mags. Two weirdest are probably Thermal and Akimbo. I don't even know if I've ever used it, Akimbo. But of course, the go-to attachment on the UMP45 was the suppressor. Now, you may be wondering, why did everyone use the suppressor on this gun? It reduces the range and it's an SMG. First of all, the range is already really good on this weapon. We're going to see that when we look at the stats. And even further, it actually reduced the recoil a little bit to make this thing an absolute beast. Not to mention, the recoil on this weapon was already absolutely beastly. So what is the magic of the UMP in Modern Warfare 2? Why was it so good? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it was always a 3-bullet kill without stopping power. That is insane. At any range across the map, it is a 3-bullet kill with a 666 RPM fire rate. Now, that is actually the lowest fire rate out of any of the SMGs, but because it was always a 2 or a 3-bullet kill with stopping power, it shredded people. On top of that, there was very little recoil, which meant it was actually possible to pick people off across the map with this gun. Just keep in mind, that is better range than almost all of the assault rifles and by far all of the SMGs. Most of the SMGs topped off at a 5-round kill. So that is why the UMP was so insane within Modern Warfare 2. Oh, and remember how I said the suppressor is pretty much what everyone used on it? That's because it couldn't reduce the range. Like I said, it's always a 3-bullet kill, which meant putting a suppressor on makes absolutely no difference. If you were to ask me what are the best weapons within Modern Warfare 2, I would have to say the Intervention, the SPAS 12, and the UMP45. And we might throw the ACR in there as well. But as far as an SMG, this weapon is by far the best. And because of that, whenever someone says UMP45, I always think of Modern Warfare 2. But of course, as we're going to find out, it is not the only Modern Warfare game that this gun is in. The next one was Modern Warfare 3. So Modern Warfare 3's UMP didn't really get as much love as Modern Warfare 2. The question is, why? Well, first of all, once again, looking at the weapon before you dive into the game, there's a new thing called weapon proficiencies, where basically perks that you could put onto your weapon. Generally speaking, in most cases, I generally used kick, which reduced the recoil of most weapons. That being said, though, there was also a bunch of attachments that were available as well. Now, once you actually hopped into the game, you'll right away notice that this gun is nowhere near as good as the UMP45 from Modern Warfare 2, for a couple of reasons. First of all, it had a lot more recoil, and I mean a lot. I would say about double the recoil of Modern Warfare 2. Now, to make up for that, it did have a higher fire rate of 759, but it didn't keep the same damage profile. In this game, you were looking at a 3 to a 5 bullet kill for the UMP, which is obviously much, much worse than just being a 3 bullet kill. Now, the other reason why you didn't hear a lot about this weapon in Modern Warfare 3 is there were a lot better SMGs in this game. The Bison, the MP5, and the MP7 were all better than the UMP. And that's why a lot of people kind of stayed away from this weapon within Modern Warfare 3, and it wasn't nearly as popular. And after this, we actually didn't see the UMP for a while. Now, one thing a lot of people don't know is that the UMP was originally supposed to be in Call of Duty Ghosts. There was leaked gameplay before the game was even shown off of the UMP being used, as you can see on screen here. But when the game was actually launched, the UMP was nowhere to be found, and it was never put back into the game. This gun is also in Call of Duty Online, but I'm not even going to go into that because I've never actually been able to play this game. And I'm actually kind of surprised that this gun is not in Call of Duty Mobile, but I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if this was a gun that was added in later on. And like I said, we didn't see anything from the UMP for a very long time, until Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, this weapon was no longer called the UMP45, but rather the McTav45. This is obviously a tip of the hat to Soap McTavish from the previous Modern Warfare games. Another big difference with this weapon is that it was considered a classic weapon, and the way that you actually unlock these was by prestiging. When you eventually prestige, you can choose a classic weapon to unlock, and one of them was the McTav45. On top of that, the Pick 10 system is in this game, so this is the first time you could really fully load out your your McTav with a bunch of different attachments on it. Now here's the thing, I think a lot of people thought this weapon back in Infinite Warfare was bad. I don't think that. I think it was a good weapon, but was just overshadowed by other weapons. The thing is it had a fire rate of 666 RPM, exactly the same as Modern Warfare 2, but was always a 4 to 5 bullet kill. Now, with that, it had a really slow time to kill up close, but at mid and long range, it was actually one of the best SMGs time to kill wise. However, with that really slow fire rate of 666, it just couldn't quite keep up with other SMGs like the ERAD, for example. So it wasn't a bad weapon, but there were just better options. But a lot of people said it was terrible, and I totally disagree with that. Really, the redeeming quality of this one is it had really good range, and I would say relatively good recoil, especially if you had the right attachments on it. Now at this point you might realize that the only games that actually have the UMP in it are the ones developed by Infinity Ward. And the next game to be developed by Infinity Ward is of course Modern Warfare. So first of all, this weapon is called the Striker 45 in Modern Warfare. It is not an exact replica of the UMP. In fact, it's not even the same exact weapon, but you can definitely see they were going with it, putting the 45 label on the name of the weapon, so we're definitely including it. And there's no point in me going over all of the attachments because as we know in Modern Warfare, there is an assload of them. And I'm going to be completely honest, this is probably the worst version of the UMP45 that we've seen. That being said, it's still not that bad. It has a fire rate of 619 RPM and is going to be a 3 to a 6 bullet kill. And once again, this weapon is just kind of overshadowed by the other SMGs in the game. Now, there are some bad things about it. First of all, it has a 25 round magazine. This is by far the lowest that we've seen for the UMP out of any of the games that we've looked at. And on top of that, its reload time isn't that great as well. Now, once you do load it up with the right attachments, it can be definitely a viable weapon. The best thing about this weapon, however, is it has good range, and on top of that, it has really good headshot multiplier. So with this weapon, you gotta be accurate. The downside of it is this weapon definitely has the most recoil out of any of the UMPs that we've looked at so far, by a long shot. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the evolution of the UMP45. In total, it's been in 4 Call of Duty games, all of which that have been developed by Infinity Ward. The worst of the UMPs was definitely in the most recent of the Modern Warfares, which was added in Season 2. And the best is by far, without a shadow of a doubt, Modern Warfare 2's UMP. And will we ever see another one that good? No, we definitely won't. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the evolution of the UMP. If you enjoyed it, as I said earlier in the video, the best way to show me is by hitting that like button, and let me know down in the comments where you'd like to see this series go in the future. Also, if you like what you see here and want to stay up to date on everything Call of Duty, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you turn notifications on. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, guys, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this to us.